clock had just struck midnight when the phone at Tony's Pizzeria rang, breaking the silence of the late-night shift. I picked up the receiver, my tired eyes scanning the dimly lit kitchen as I listened to the order. It was an unusual request, a large pepperoni pizza to be delivered to an address deep in the countryside, miles away from the town. The caller gave their name as Mr. Smith and insisted on immediate delivery. Curiosity mixed with the monotony of my job as I grabbed a fresh pizza and set out on the eerie journey into the unknown. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows on the winding road. The countryside was bathed in an inky darkness, broken only by the occasional flickering of distant farmhouses. As I drove deeper into the night, unease crept over me. The trees along the roadside seemed to lean in menacingly, and the wind whispered secrets that sent shivers down my spine. I glanced at the delivery address scribbled on the crumpled receipt, a desolate and long-forgotten farmhouse. The thought of returning to the pizzeria crossed my mind, but the promise of a generous tip kept my foot on the gas pedal. As I approached the coordinates on the GPS, the road grew narrower and more treacherous. It felt like I was entering another realm, far removed from the safety of civilization. A sudden, bone-chilling gust of wind rattled my nerves, making me grip the steering wheel tighter. And then I saw it, a faint, shadowy figure standing in the middle of the road. Panic surged through me as I slammed on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision. The figure remained motionless, its spectral form illuminated by my headlights. It was the apparition of a woman, her ethereal white gown billowing in the night breeze. Her eyes were hollow, and her face held an expression of eternal sorrow. Frozen in terror, I couldn't tear my gaze away from the ghostly vision before me. Her mournful stare bore into my soul, sending waves of dread coursing through my veins. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead as I tried to comprehend the impossible. Just as I summoned the courage to speak, the ghostly woman let out a blood-curdling scream that pierced the silence of the night. My heart pounded like a drum, and I threw the car into reverse, speeding away from the spectral figure. My breaths came in short, frantic gasps as I sped down the road, desperate to escape the nightmare I had encountered. After what felt like an eternity, I finally arrived at the address on the receipt, a dilapidated farmhouse that loomed in the darkness like a forgotten relic of a bygone era. The place was devoid of any signs of life, and the air was thick with an oppressive sense of foreboding. I cautiously made my way to the front door, each step echoing ominously in the stillness of the night. I knocked, my knuckles rapping against the rotting wood, and waited in the eerie silence. No one answered, and I considered leaving the pizza on the porch and making a hasty retreat. But just as I turned to go, a voice from within the house called out, "Come in, please." The voice was soft and trembling, and I couldn't help but feel a shiver of dread. I pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The interior was just as decayed as the exterior, with peeling wallpaper and broken furniture scattered about. The flickering light of an old chandelier cast eerie shadows on the walls. "Hello?" I called out, clutching the pizza box tightly. Silence. I took a tentative step further into the house, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. The air was stifling, and the smell of decay hung heavy in the air. It was then that I heard it, a series of faint guttural whispers that seemed to emanate from all around me. Terrified, I followed the eerie voices down a narrow hallway, each whisper growing louder and more distinct. They were murmuring words I couldn't quite make out, their tone growing more desperate and anguished with each passing second. As I reached the end of the hallway, I entered a dimly lit room where the voices reached a fevered pitch. The walls were adorned with faded family portraits, their eyes following me with a haunting intensity. But it was the source of the whispers that sent a cold chill down my spine. A wooden door, half ajar, from which the voices seemed to emanate. Summoning every ounce of courage, I pushed the door open, revealing a small, candlelit chamber. In the center of the room stood a circle of people, their heads bowed in prayer. Their eyes were closed, their lips moving in silent supplication, but their faces were twisted with despair. And then, I saw him, the man from the road, the one who had ordered the pizza. He stood at the center of the circle, his eyes fixed on me with a malevolent intensity. His lips curled into a wicked smile as he extended a bony hand toward me. "Welcome," he hissed, his voice dripping with malice. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest, and made a run for the front door. But as I reached it, I saw something that froze me in my tracks. The ghostly woman from the road, her mournful eyes now filled with rage, standing in the doorway. Her spectral form blocked my escape, and her piercing scream echoed in my ears once more. With nowhere left to turn, I raced back through the house, the voices of despair growing louder and more deranged with each step. I burst out of the front door and into the darkness, not looking back, and sprinted towards my car. As I sped away from that accursed farmhouse, I couldn't help but wonder if the pizza delivery had been a cruel trap, a lure to bring me into the clutches of those vengeful spirits. I would never know for sure, but one thing was certain. I had encountered a darkness that defied explanation, and the memory of that night would haunt me for the rest of my days.